What's going on, guys? Welcome to Victims and Villains. My name is Josh. Today we're jumping into the wacky world of Five Nights at Freddy's. Before we even get into synopsis, thoughts, mental health, anything like that, I'm going to put this disclaimer at the beginning of the video that I have never played Five Nights at Freddy's. I've never read any of the lore around it. I came into this movie completely blind, and I'm going into this review completely as from a critical standpoint, not anything resembling fan standpoint. With that, let's jump into it. This Five Nights at Freddy's adaptation tells the story of a older brother who lost his younger brother, has trauma unresolved from it, unable to keep a job, takes a job as a security guard at the pizza place where the animatronics come to life, and is essentially now trying to survive working at said pizza place. Also, while trying to get answers about his unresolved trauma from his missing brother. First thing I'll say about this movie, because I feel like I have a lot to say about it, Josh Hutcherson absolutely crushes this role. I really liked Hutcherson's performance. I really feel like he elevated his performance way above everyone else's. And with that, let's talk about everyone else. If you couldn't tell by that sigh, every other performance in this movie is just way too either overacted or wooden or flat. It just feels like it was delivered with just a lack of emotion. Which feels ironic to say because this movie feels like it takes itself way too seriously. As the movie will no doubt expand in future coming weeks, there will no doubtedly be a lot of comparisons to the Nicolas Cage independent horror film Willy's Wonderland, which you guys can listen to our full review on That's High Praise. I'll provide a link at the end of the show and a link in the description as well. But where Willy's really succeeded, Willy's had, yes, it has a lot of comparisons to Freddy's, but it was a film that really was a lot of fun. Whereas this film is aggressively boring and it takes itself way too seriously. And as a result, what should have been a really fun gateway horror film for not only fans of the franchise from the video game aspect, but also potential new fans as cinema goers, you really kind of just lost yourself. It's really hard to tell whether this movie is intended to be a comedy, intended to be a horror film, intended to be a drama, because it fails at damn near every one of those genres. I absolutely love concepts like Five Nights at Freddy's, and I really wanted this film to succeed. This film just seems like it's unsure of who it's being made for, what it's trying to accomplish, and above all else, who it is as a film. Just when you thought we were making strides as video game adaptations into the film medium and really breaking that so-called video game curse, along comes Five Nights at Freddy's and proves that it is not dead. I will say the animatronics in this, the actual characters that make up the Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria animatronics, look really awesome. They are probably one of the very few, outside of Hutcherson's performance, saving graces and redeeming factors of the film. They're really creepy, but here is my complaint with them as a part of the story. There's not enough of them. Like, this movie is called Five Nights at Freddy's, and I feel like we don't get to spend any time actually in Five Nights at Freddy's long enough for this really to be considered a Five Nights at Freddy's adaptation. Like, this movie's been stuck in development hell for at least 5 years, and this is the best that we can do. Like, come on. I think a lot of the story surrounding Josh Hutcherson's character and kind of how they connect that and the pizzeria, ultimately, it ends up being a really satisfying conclusion and everything like that. Like, the last 10 minutes of this movie, awesome, absolutely awesome. But you cannot build 100 minutes of mediocre, boring, poorly acted, terribly written film around 10 minutes of awesome. Like it renders it absolutely pointless by that case. The pacing of this movie is god awful. Like there are so many times where this film just literally drags. It literally drags. And the thing that I feel really sad about people that are fans of this movie, so much of this movie takes place outside of the pizzeria. Why? And again, I'm not a gamer. I've never played these games before. Maybe that's a thing of the game. Maybe that's how they thought, you know what, we'll tie this connection in. But like literally, like I don't know how else to describe it. Like the pacing of this movie, anytime the film is not at the pizzeria, this movie just drags, which is about 75% of the time. This movie also could have used more Matthew Lillard. Also a redeeming factor here. I'm also considering putting out a spoiler conversation about this. So if you guys have seen Five Nights at Freddy's, if you guys would like me to talk about the ending of this movie, because I feel like I have a lot more to say about the ending than I do about the actual movie, let me know in the comments. And if you guys get good feedback, I'll do it. Let's run this one through the Rorschach rating scale. I feel like I've dragged this one through the mud quite enough. I'm going to go ahead and give Five Nights at Freddy's a 1.5 out of 5. There's literally nothing else to say. This movie had such potential and it is absolutely wasted. The fact that this movie is not rated R, considering some of the creative gags that they have, is literally probably the biggest missed opportunity for 2023. I mean, the fact that Megan took a PG-13 rating and was able to make a more compelling story, B, more creative kills, even without blood, and C, just be all around more entertaining than this movie, says gangbusters. So if you guys have seen Five Nights at Freddy's, what did you guys think about it? Comment below, let me know. If you guys are gamers, did it live up to the game? If for those that had been anticipating this for a while, did it live up to the anticipation? Let's talk about it in the comments. But now let's talk about mental health. If you guys are new to our content, Mental Health Moment is where we take a theme of mental health out of the film which we're discussing, talk about it for a few moments in the hopes to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health. For as much negative as I have to say about this film, I really do think that this film really does capture the grieving process quite well. As I previously mentioned, Josh Hutcherson's character Mike in this movie has lost his brother, and he has spent the better part of probably like 10 to 12 years like essentially looking for him, and his entire arc throughout the course of the movie is kind of like getting closure for his brother. And quite honestly, that's a very real, very grounded, but also at the same time very accurate portrayal of what the grieving portrait can be like for people in Mike's case. And it's such a reminder that, again, that you don't understand the grieving process until you go through it, but also at the same time that grieving also looks vastly different for everyone. And so if you or someone you know is struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, or you're going through the grieving process yourself, first off, I'm deeply sorry to hear that. It's never fun to lose someone. But second off, if you need someone to talk to, or if you need any resources, click the links in our descriptions below to talk about our mental health resource library. That's going to do it for us. In the descriptions below, you guys will also find links to more movie reviews like this, our Patreon, social media, podcasts on our podcast network, that subscribe button, and more information about not only our upcoming film festival, Horrific Hope, which is going to be entering its third year next year, but also our spin-off events for January, Winter Wonderland. So until next time, remember to stay classy.